Hello, welcome to the beginning of section 1 of the course. In this section, we'll be taking a look at how VR works within Unity. Today, we'll be going over section 1.0, which is setting up a VR project. Be sure to have Unity open, as after covering some important concepts, we'll be jumping straight into Unity to implement what we have learned. So how do we create VR in Unity? Well, Unity has a framework for creating cross-platform XR, which is VR plus AR, applications, XR plugin framework. In addition, it also has the developer tool XR Interaction Toolkit. So what is the XR plugin framework? To quote the documentation directly, it is a new unified plugin framework that enables direct integrations for multiple platforms. The tech stack consists of an API that exposes common functionality across the platforms Unity supports, and enables XR hardware and software providers to develop their own Unity plugins. Or, in other words, it enables us to build cross-platform VR applications in Unity that can be easily distributed to different platforms. The diagram to the right shows how the XR plugin framework is set up. It is the blue section of the tech stack, and as you can see on the bottom, different providers or platforms make plugins to implement it. Therefore, distributing to a new platform becomes as simple as changing a plugin. The XR Interaction Toolkit is a high-level developer tool that allows us to build player interaction into our VR world. It will allow us to give the player the ability to teleport, grab objects, and walk around. So let's look at how these parts work together in Unity's XR tech stack to build our app. The section of the tech stack highlighted to the right contains the parts that are relevant to VR development. At the top right, we see our VR app. To develop the app, we work through the XR Interaction Toolkit, which is the developer tool on top of the XR plugin framework, which is implemented by many XR providers, allowing us to distribute our app to many platforms. Hopefully this is a good summary of how VR apps are built in Unity. Besides the XR plugin framework and the XR Interaction Toolkit, there are also other packages that will help us build our VR apps. The packages XR Core Utilities and XR Legacy Input Helpers will be automatically imported with XR Interaction Toolkit, and will provide us with helpful scripts and pre-built game objects that we will need to set up our VR world and to track player movement. Now let's jump into Unity, and set up a Unity project with the XR plugin framework and the XR Interaction Toolkit. Okay, so here we are, and the first thing we want to do is to open up Unity Hub, and to make a new project. Now we're going to be making a 3D project. You can choose whatever pipeline you like. I like URP. Though I don't suggest the high definition render pipeline, just because that's way too processor intensive for VR, especially if you want to distribute it to an all-in-one headset such as the Oculus Quest. So I'm going to name my project VR Setup. And let's make this project. Create project. So while this is loading, I want to talk to you guys about the article for today's video. If I scroll back up, section 1, setting up a VR project in Unity. And I think this article might be valuable for you guys because there are step-by-step instructions for setting up a VR project in Unity. So if you want to refer to a resource when setting up your project, you can look at this article. Okay, so I've opened my project now, and the first thing we're going to do is to set up the XR plugin framework. So you want to go into Edit, and to go Project Settings. Now down here at the very bottom, you'll see XR plugin management. And this is what you'll use to manage the XR plugin framework. So install XR plugin management to install the package. After the package is loaded, you'll see different tabs at the top of the page, and they represent different platforms you'll be distributing to. This represents desktop, and this represents Android, iOS, HTML, Universal Windows platform. But the main ones you'd be focusing on is desktop and Android. Now, desktop distributions are basically for VR apps that run on your desktop and are displayed to your VR headset through a tether, while Android distributions are for the Oculus Quests, right, the all-in-one headsets. And under each of these platforms, you can choose what plugin you want to use. For desktop, I recommend choosing OpenXR. Now, OpenXR is an open standard that many different runtimes support, and so if you publish your game using the OpenXR plugin, you can run it pretty much everywhere. You'll be able to run it through Steam VR, and you'll also be able to run it through Oculus's runtime. You can also choose the Oculus plugin, but the Oculus plugin will only run in the Oculus runtime, so OpenXR is preferred. Now you'll see a warning here about the new input system. This is all fine, just click yes. Okay, you'll notice an error here in OpenXR. We'll address that later. Let's first look at the Android tab. And here you can choose between the different plugins you want for the Android distribution. I would recommend either Oculus or OpenXR. Because most of the all-in-one headsets are Oculus Quests, you might as well just use the Oculus plugin. But if you want to be able to distribute to other systems, perhaps use the OpenXR plugin. However, I do know there are sort of errors with the OpenXR implementation on Oculus Quest, so if you publish it using OpenXR, you might not be able to open the file on Oculus Quest. So if you want to err on the side of safety, then just use the Oculus plugin. Now you'll notice on the bottom left there are pages for each of the plugins you have imported. Now inside these pages you can edit the settings for each of these plugins. On the Oculus page there isn't really anything important to set here. You can leave them as the default. There are just some technical settings, but they aren't important right now, and you can choose these to decide which platforms you want to distribute to, the Quest or Quest 2. Now let's look at the OpenXR page. And you'll notice this thing here, interaction profiles. And this is what's causing the error we noticed earlier here. It's saying that we haven't set up any interaction profiles. So let's add some. Now, firstly, let's talk about what interaction profiles are. Interaction profiles basically just represents the layout of a particular type of controller. And we have to set this for OpenXR because it's an open standard and therefore it can run on many different systems with many different types of controllers. And so you need to select here what controllers you might use in your program. You can click as many as you want, but you probably won't need stuff like eye gaze interaction profile, but you can also click it if you want. Just add all the controllers you think you might need to use. Okay. And this is pretty much the plugin framework set up. So the next thing you need to do is to import XR Interaction Toolkit. So how do you do that? Well, you go and import it as a package. Now go into Unity Registry. Okay, so inside the package manager, you can look for the XR Interaction Toolkit, but currently there's a weird quirk where it doesn't show up here for some reason. I don't know why. But you can click plus and add package by name and get the XR Interaction Toolkit package by writing com.unity.xr.interaction.toolkit. And if you click add here, the package will be added to your project. Now it's very weird why this package isn't being displayed in the registry, because it is part of the Unity registry as indicated here, so I don't know why. It should be added back into the list in the future. Here there's something about interaction layer masks. This is basically for old projects, so you can click no thanks or I made a backup. It's the same because it's a new project, so it's not going to change anything. Okay, inside here you'll notice some samples, and there is a very important sample for you to download. It's this starter assets, so click import. And basically starter assets is quite nice because it sets up a lot of stuff for us, so we don't need to go through the tedium of setting it up. So let's look at the starter assets. Inside here you'll notice these, and these are presets for different scripts. And these presets are useful because we'll be dealing with scripts such as these, which have very many fields. So if you don't want to fill them in every single time, I suggest you use the presets. So all you have to do is to click on the preset and click add blah 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 default, and do that for all of the presets. Add, and add. Okay, there's one more thing we have to do in regards to presets, and that's to go to Project Settings, Preset Manager, and provide a filter for these two presets. And this is because there are two presets for this one script, so we need a way to differentiate between them. So inside Filter, for this right one, type right. And for this left one, type left. Okay, and that's everything to do with presets. One last thing to note is this object, which is also very important. And if you know anything about the new Unity input system, this is an action file, and it contains action maps for everything we need in VR. So instead of you having to go bind every single action and gyroscope and button on your VR controllers and headsets to an action, they've done it all for you. And this really saves us a lot of time. So basically, with all this done, we've set up the plugin framework, and we've also set up the XR Interaction Toolkit, so we're pretty much done. Right now, you still can't click play and start your VR app, but this has set up everything we need to start doing that in the next section. So thank you very much for watching, and I'm excited to see you in the next video.